AEW this week. I guess they had a women's, the women's Casino Gauntlet match will take place to determine the number one contendership for Mariah May, her women's championship next week on Dynamite. But this week, Powerhouse Hobbs won the men's Gauntlet Casino Gauntlet match and will now challenge Jon Moxley next week at Dynamite Maximum Carnage for the AEW World Championship here. So good for Powerhouse Hobbs. No doubt about it. Hobbs likely is not going to win because they are clearly heading in the direction for Cope versus Mox, as we discussed last week. But it's still a great spot to showcase Powerhouse Hobbs against the world champion. It'll give Hobbs the rub and help to elevate him further. Thoughts on this booking decision?
I mean, I'm glad Hobbs won, but it's a hollow victory because it sucks because again, Hobbs is another guy who deserves more. Hobbs is a hell of a talent. For a guy his size, moves the way he moves. I don't know. It's WWE does the same thing too, but you're recycling these guys for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like Hobbs, after him, the whole story with him and Ricky Starks when they split, Hobbs should have got pushed to the moon because again, he is everything. He could be that bad guy. Now, can he hold the heavyweight title? I have no idea. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of pressure. But you could have gave him some other title to even see if he can hold that. You get what I'm saying? Like Hobbs deserves more than what he's gotten. And again, this is one of those hollow victories because you know how this shit's going to end.
Well, that's my biggest problem with this part. It's not so much the Hobbs, he just got back from injury.
Battle Royal though.
Yeah, he just got back from injury too. So for now, we'll just wait and see with Hobbs. But my biggest issue with it is, of course, they like to do, and the same thing with the AEW Women's Gauntlet match next week. Like someone's going to win that, and most likely, almost automatically, they're not going to win the following week because they're setting up something bigger. In this case, Moxley and Cope. So it's kind of like, it's again, like you said, it's kind of hollow because
there's no stakes in this.
If you're going to do that kind of booking, you need to do it to occasionally. The upset will happen. Like Hobbs would win the title next week. That way it kind of gives you that believability factor to it. But if you're not going to do that, it just kind of goes, well, all right, that'll be nice for him to be elevated. But and don't get me wrong, and he'll probably get pinned by the world champion. Probably some shenanigans will get involved or whatever. But
but that's the thing. The shenanigans shouldn't, like with a guy like Hobbs, I don't know.
I agree with you on that one. Mike in the chat says, what is the general consensus of us on the Casino Battle Royal match? He's not a fan of it, really. My biggest criticism of it is, I like the Royal Rumble kind of aspect to it. It's basically 20 guys, and like every 2 minutes or something like that, another guy enters the match until like whoever gets the first pinfall or submission is the winner of the whole thing. But the problem with it is, even though there's 20 guys in the match can end at any time. So there may only be 5, 7, 8, 10 guys who actually get in the match. And if someone wins, those other 10 guys who supposedly were in the match never even got an opportunity.
But that'd be a great wrinkle. Imagine if they did that. Like Hobbs was the second guy out, right? He gets in there, destroys the first dude, pins him. That's it.
Well,
nobody
that is legitimately part of it. They could do that.
That's what I'm saying.
So you like that wrinkle?
But yes, because then it's like you put Hobbs over as a real threat at that fucking point. If he just goes out there and destroys another person and wins before anybody else can get in the ring, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, he's a real issue. He's a problem.
Yeah.
But there's no real weight because, like I said, Moxley's not losing that title.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's kind of the inverse of Royal Rumble too. Like the number one pick or the number one entry is actually an advantage at this point instead of a disadvantage. So yeah, I mean, but again, kind of like with the whole, title contender, you have to actually have someone win like that occasionally to kind of give it that stake. Otherwise, about 7 or 8 guys are going to come in, then we might get a winner.
Yeah.
Or at some point you've got to do all 20 or whatever. You got to vary it up a little bit instead of just doing the same thing you've been doing every time. Otherwise, the concept, I don't mind it. But I can see why you might take a little time to grow on it because I'd be curious to see what Mike's criticisms of it is. If you got that in the chat, Mike, I'd like to kind of wonder what you think on it. But outside of that, though, let's see, where were we here? Okay, Kenny Omega also returned to Dynamite this week. He came into conflict with Don Callis and the Callis family. Omega was jumped by Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Kyle Fletcher after he barely got his hands on Don Callis, who interrupted Omega's return promo. This brought out Will Ospreay to make the save. And of course, Ospreay and Omega have no love lost between each other over the years, especially in New Japan and other independent markets. This sets up Kenny Omega's in-ring return in AEW next week at Maximum Carnage versus Brian Cage and the Callis family. I'm sure the storyline of Ospreay and Omega both being screwed over by Don Callis in the past, that common enemy could drive Ospreay and Omega into a bit of a friendship or even a tag team moving forward, but we'll see where that goes. Thoughts on Kenny Omega's return to AEW Dynamite?
It was cool to see Kenny back. Like I said, going through the medical condition and shit that he was going through. So it's good to see him back, but
he had a great match at Wrestle Dynasty in Japan.
Yes, he did.
Gabe Kidd. That was outstanding. So we know he's healthy, ready to go. We'll see what he does against the the Machine Brian Cage, or the Swolverine, or as they're billing it here, the Machine versus the Best Bout Machine next week. So that's kind of cool too. So, but that's the way they're branding it. Yeah, could be a lot of fun. I'm interested to see where that goes. But overall, I'd say probably WWE had the better show this week. Outside of the fact, obviously, some of the criticisms I had on that show as well. So, but good stuff for sure. But AEW did have a couple other little things I wanted to touch on right quick. Will Ospreay defeated Buddy Matthews in a fun opener on Dynamite, but the big story came after the match. Will Ospreay shook Buddy Matthews' hand in the middle of the ring, and then he got on the mic and put over Buddy Matthews, saying that he's wrestled both Buddy and Brody King of the House of Black, and both have titles in their future. Ospreay then said an interesting line that Buddy and Brody King don't need a leader. And when he said it, most assumed it was a natural story progression that was taking place. But now Fightful Select is reporting that Malakai Black is either finishing up with AEW or is already done. This new development sheds some light on Ospreay's promo, especially when Ospreay added he'd have Buddy Matthews back should he ever need it, hinting at maybe Buddy joining Ospreay down the line, perhaps in a new faction led by Ospreay, a la the United Kingdom. If this report is true by Fightful, and Fightful is usually
look at that guy.
Yeah, I know.
Brody King is massive.
And Fightful's normally
huge.
Fightful's normally a very reliable source, but could we be seeing the end of the House of Black? And if so, AEW blew a major opportunity with Malakai, one that Triple H will
blows my mind because he.
I know. There's a lot. No. There's a lot of guys in AEW, like Miro, that are former WWE guys. Malakai Black, Andrade, the Hardy Boys. That AEW's just, let's be honest here. They simply dropped the ball with all of them for the most part. I mean,
Malakai Black, for sure.
Malakai especially, probably at the top of that list. Him and Miro, in my opinion,
is a main eventer. I don't get that one. I truthfully don't. The whole House of Black thing could have been massive as a faction.
Yeah,
and
I like what they did, but they just didn't go that extra step. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like there's a whole lot more you could have done with it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure if they keep Brody and Buddy and Julia Hart all together, they could still maybe do something with it. But it sounds like it just kind of feels like the House of Black's kind of just spinning the tires a bit. Going after tag team gold, but maybe they'll actually branch off and do some other stuff without Malakai. Maybe this could be a good thing for the other three competitors. And if Triple H gets Aleister Black back, he's not going to blow the opportunity. He's not. So, and some of these old WWE guys like Malakai Black and Andrade obviously have spouses in WWE. Buddy Matthews also does too with Rhea Ripley, but as of right now, it sounds like Buddy Matthews' status in AEW is secure at the moment. So,
brother, can you imagine Brody King in WWE?
Oh, can you imagine him up against like Gunther or crap, what's his name? The guy who just got big Bronson Reed.
Reed.
Oh, brother.
Oh, man.
Outstanding. Yeah. This
Braun Breaker, for that matter.
Oh, Breaker. Yeah. Another good up and comer. So, yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong. AEW losing like a Malakai Black or an Andrade or Miro. Yes, it sucks. It sucks they didn't get utilized properly, but AEW still got a wealth of talent from Ospreay, Omega to Okada to, there's a lot more. I mean, maybe you don't need to be using Jeff Jarrett in the world title picture, but I understand what they're doing. They're trying to give him like a final run, as it were. There's a lot of good talent in AEW too. MJF, Adam Cole, just off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a lot still to go around there. But this kind of sucks. Would love to have seen AEW do a lot more with the talent that they acquired. All right, so I guess that'll do it for professional wrestling this week. Anybody else have any thoughts on those?
Nope. Just sad about the whole Malakai Black thing, though. Truly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like
Vital Force.
he was one of my favorites in NXT, like legitimately. Him and Ricochet, some of the matches they did, him and there was a number of guys that he wrestled in NXT. You know, Adam Cole, Ricochet, Hideo. Man, you imagine if he shows up one night and interrupts Nakamura?
Yeah. Nakamura on him right now would be great storyline. Now I don't know if there'd be a non-compete clause with Malakai right now or not. I'd have to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
But just think about this too. We just saw Undertaker with Rhea Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
WWE could use an Undertaker type character, and Malakai Black is perfect for that role.
Royal Rumble would be perfect.
Absolutely. Now, yeah, that would be dope. Not gonna lie to you. So I'd mark out in my chair. I'm not gonna lie to you. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you for checking out this clip of the Dragon's Den podcast. If you like what you saw here, please consider checking out our live podcast almost every single Friday night here on the channel at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And until our next video, guys, take care and God bless.